Welcome to another edition of Inside Town Hall. I'm Jim Cameron, your host and the program director here at Darien TV 79. And Inside Town Hall is, as its name implies, a program where we talk to the folks who work inside Darien Town Hall to make our town government function so smoothly. Our guest today on the program is Pam Geary. She is the director of the Parks and Recreation Department. Pam, welcome to Inside Town Hall.
Thank you. I'm so excited you invited me in.
Oh, that's great. I hope you still feel that way by the end of the interview. That's great.
Well, I know we have a lot to unpack here, and I think that
we do.
There's Parks and Recreation can be pretty mysterious to some.
Well, let's demystify all that. Before we talk about the department, tell us a little bit about your professional background and training and how you came to working in Darien.
Sure. So in my 20s, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we really didn't hear a lot about Parks and Recreation. I grew up in a small town called Westbrook, Connecticut, and did a lot of traveling in my 20s. And when I came back to Connecticut, my mother said, "Hey, there's this job on Parks and Recreation in Westbrook." And I really didn't know much about it. I had a marketing background from college, a bachelor's degree from Central Connecticut State University. And I went and applied. And it was for basically a one-man show in the town hall of Westbrook, Connecticut. And that's where my career started. I was there for 4 years. And then I applied for the job in North Branford. So I became the director of North Branford Parks and Recreation and Senior Center. And I was there for 15 years. And then I learned about this job opening from a prior boss of mine, who was Carl Kilduff, who happened to be the town administrator here, who kind of shot me an email and said, "Hey, you might want to know that there's a job opening here in Darien." And so I studied the town, visited the town, and was super excited about the opportunity, and was lucky enough to be chosen. And I've been here now almost 8 years.
Excellent. Excellent. How big is Darien's Parks and Recreation Department?
How big is it? Well, we have 13 parks, and we also manage Highland and the police department properties. So, we add those two to our list of maintenance jobs. But it's a population of 20,000 people with, it's not, I wouldn't say that it was a really super large, many towns have many more parks, but it's very manageable. We only have 7 full-time parks crew members. So, with the additional 16 acres at Highland, it makes it a little bit more challenging, but we've gotten into a routine, and, so there's a lot to take care of.
And I see from the website that you're still doing some hiring.
Yes. Yeah. We're looking for 2 seasonal parks, ground maintenance that we hire every year. So certainly if anybody's interested out there, they're, young woman or a young man that's interested in working in the parks and the grounds and all the beaches, great job being outdoors. And then we're looking for a seasonal office attendant that helps with programming and answering the phone and program registration. And we're also looking for a seasonal program, event planner, park monitor, various kind of flexible hours for that position seasonally as well. And we're also looking for lifeguards.
Park monitor?
Well, park monitor came about with 2020. And so when the pandemic hit, we were really in need of somebody that would be the eyes and the ears of all our parks and making sure that people were social distancing with that whole routine. But we found that it was a really valuable position in the sense that when we had things going on, when we weren't around or we didn't have staff on, we could send this particular person to, the picnic area to make sure that things were going well at the security hut, checking in on the concessions, checking in on the beach attendants. If people were drinking, there was glass bottles on the beach. They were another eyes and ears for dogs off leash, and just kind of bringing the attention and the rules and regulations to those that were visiting the parks. So we felt it was very valuable.
And you also do some seasonal hiring for your summer youth programs as well, too?
Summer, well, that's more youth commission. So that is Alicia Siller's job with the youth camps.
Great.
So she'll be looking for staff, I'm sure, as well.
How big is the Parks and Rec budget?
Our budget is 1.6 million, and we offset that budget by nearly $1 million in revenue. So we continue to provide more and more and more. We've become more recognized by the community, and they're searching our services out, which is just phenomenal.
Let's talk a little bit about the parks themselves. You say there are 13 parks in Darien. Let's start with the biggest and work down toward the smallest. How big is the biggest, and which is it? So
the biggest is actually Cherry Lawn, which is at 28 acres. And it's by far, I shouldn't say by far, it's closely, there's a close runner-up with Weed Beach, but it is a super, super busy park because it has the pond, the tennis court, the basketball courts, now new pickleball courts. It's got a baseball field, it's got a soccer field, it's got playgrounds, got a basketball court, if I didn't mention that already. There's just a multitude of things that go on there. And plus, let's add in the Darien Nature Center right there too. So the parking is busy. The activities is busy year round. And so the next second biggest is Weed Beach. And that's certainly extremely busy too, especially obviously in the summertime, but it's busy all year round as well. It just doesn't have as many amenities as the Cherry Lawn Park does. However, it does have a playground, it has picnic areas, and it has the paddle warming hut. So that's busy all winter. It's got a concession stand and a bathhouse. And we have a beautiful green grassy area and that we call the meadow now that people have been actually gathering as well. So that's that particular park. And then of course, stepping back those are the parks, but we also have nature preserves, which are much larger than those parks, but they're different. So we don't have to spend a lot of time maintaining the nature preserves. So Woodland Park Nature Preserve is 65 acres and Selleck's Woods is 28 acres. But again, they are run by friends groups. So we have Friends of Selleck's Woods and Friends of Woodland Park. I did reach out to the Friends of Woodland Park to see if the same president was still leading the group. I haven't heard back from her, but Chris Filmer is leading the Friends of Selleck's Woods. He's been doing that for well over 30 years. He's a gem to this department. And without him, I don't think that we would have the amount of things that we do with Selleck's Woods.
What do these friends groups do in Woodland Park and Selleck's Woods?
Well, Selleck's Woods, I can speak to that with Chris Filmer leading up the charge with that group. They are a 501c3 group, volunteer group, and they have monthly meetings and they carry a small budget and they go in and they clean out the trails every year. So they'll be doing that sometime in April, cleaning out all the trails, getting ready for this season, and making sure that the trees are safe in there, that there's enough parking, that they're picking up the trash, and making sure that the bird areas are taken care of, and they just take care of the park. And certainly if they have bigger requests, they'll reach out to me and we'll have our park crew assist.
Pam Geary is our guest today on Inside Town Hall. She is the director of Darien's Parks and Recreation Department. So we've mentioned the two beaches. We've mentioned Cherry Lawn with all of its offerings. Community garden there as well too, right? Did we mention that? Community garden has 63 garden plots, if you will. And they also have a committee. So that was started in the 70s.
this community garden committee from the garden club. And they've carried on since then. So they do a lot of work with the Parks and Recreation Department. It is town land, and it is busy. And there is very, very rarely are there openings. There is a long, long waiting list. Very, very popular.
Great. And we mentioned Selleck's Woods, Woodland Park. What else have we missed here?
McGuan Park, an incredible baseball facility.
That's behind the firehouse, right?
Behind the firehouse. And I'm certain most people in this town have spent quite a few years at that park with their kids playing in Little League. And so that's a unique position. We basically share that facility with Little League. Little League pays for any of the enhancements or things that need to be fixed inside the building. And Parks and Recreation cares for the outside of the building. And our crew goes in weekly during the season and on weekends to groom the fields, baseball fields for them. And we also have a playground there as well that's very well attended.
And Bakerfield at the site of the old school.
Bakerfield. So we have a playground there. We have a trail in the back. We have a multi-use space that soccer uses, and it's also used for baseball and Little League. Not much parking there, but it seems to do very well. It's a very shady park, has lots of trees near the playground. So we see a lot of caretakers with the children and neighborhood families using the playground there.
What else on your hit parade of the Baker's dozen of facilities?
We haven't talked about Pear Tree.
Yes.
And Pear Tree is also another park that we have. I don't know that I wrote down that acreage there. I was writing down the biggest. But Pear Tree is a well-loved park and beach in town. And this town is super lucky to have two beaches. Not every town has two beaches. So one is very highly recreated at Weed Beach. Lots of things to do. At Pear Tree is just the opposite. Very quiet and calm, and no playgrounds. They have a small picnic area and a beautiful historic gazebo and a small bathhouse. We did get rid of the concessions this year, which is the first time, and I'm sure residents will need to know that that is closed down. Based off of a community survey, townwide community survey that was done, and just very low attendance with the concession, having a very hard time trying to fill it, find a vendor to run it. So the commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, feels very passionately about putting some enhancements to the facility there, but taking away the concession.
You mentioned the Parks and Rec Commission. There's also an RTM Parks and Rec Committee, which is different. And we've interviewed Lori Bora of the Parks and Rec Commission. What's your department's relationship with the Parks and Recreation Commission? Do you answer to them? Are they an advisory group?
They're more than an advisory group. The Parks and Rec Commission actually can make and vote for the rules and regulations over the parks, not necessarily for anything to do with staffing or anything like that. But when it comes to the parks, they have a big say in how they're run, and I have a very close relationship with my Parks and Recreation Commission. They're very helpful when it comes to, deciding on things and helping through, maybe some conflicts with residents and parks. And we always have very, very long meetings, unfortunately.
Yes, and they're all on TV 79, everybody.
Yes,
if you want to tune in and see the sausage being made, as they say.
And I guess they're my armor, if you will, when it comes to conflicts, because you need to have good people behind you in this career. And so, yes, the Parks and Recreation RTM committee, that is very new to me in this town. I've dealt with my Parks and Rec commissions in each town that I've worked in, but I haven't had to work with a RTM committee. And I've learned as I've grown here the great influence that the RTM Parks and Rec Committee has. And so how good it is to make sure everybody's working together. It's very helpful. And there's a lot of people to navigate.
And does the RTM Parks and Rec Committee ever conflict with the Parks and Rec Commission in philosophy or decision making?
Yes. There's a lot of people, right? Not everybody, not everybody sees it the way somebody else sees it, right? So, but we're all working together. So, I know, for instance, with the gazebo, we had a family in town.
This is a gazebo at Cherry Lawn.
Cherry Lawn. So they wanted to donate a considerable amount of money in memory of their father. And they were really set on changing the gazebo, kind of knocking down the old one and putting up a new one. And some of the commission members were in favor of that and some were not. And same with the RTM committee. But after, a lot of deliberation, it was decided that they really wanted to restore, and everybody agreed. We all came to the same conclusion, and we are currently working through that process right now with restoring the gazebo. So it's, there's just a lot of opinions, and you have to work with it. And I certainly have, a good disposition to be able to work with lots of people.
And even a donation such as that family's in honor of their father, a donation to the town for a project like that has to go through a long approval process, including, I believe, the Board of Finance, or certainly the Board of Selectmen and the RTM, right?
Yes. And I have, fortunately I've been able to work with different organizations to have these organizations donate money to different projects. And yes, it's a lot of time. A lot of time goes into going to each, the commission and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and the RTM before you can get, and just because it's a great deed. But if it's anything over $10,000, which most of mine are, we do need all those approvals before we get started.
And I believe the Federated Property folks donated some money last year after our first selectwoman made a phone call.
Federal Realty
to
actually, I'd like to give a shout.
that baseball diamond cage. Was that it?
No, the Federal Realty is going to donate $22,000 towards our replacement of the playground.
Yes.
We had $175,000 of ARPA funding, which is another subject we could talk about. And it's so expensive to replace the playground that it would have been eaten up like $20,000 just to have the existing playground removed. Mm-hmm. So we, the nice working group that I'm working with really felt that, gosh, if we could get some additional donations just to take care of the demolition, we could put $175,000 to the equipment rather than. So Monica McNally, our first select woman, had reached out to Federal Realty and they agreed. So that was fantastic. We'll have to go through all those, stages and groups to get the approval for it. But I'd like to mention all the ones that we are working with. So we're also working with the Darien Foundation, who has been super, super generous. They have approved to donate to replace the American flag and pole at Weed Beach that was torn down by a storm. So that's between $10,000 and $15,000 they'll be giving to us. They've also agreed and approved as a group to give $25,000 for a construction bid package for the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project. They've also approved anywhere up to $350,000 to the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project if the construction bid package comes back within the amount funded that we're requesting. So that is really generous.
And I should also point out that the Darien Federation has been Darien Foundation, I should say, has been very good to TV 79 in the past in helping fund some of our computer equipment and servers and things like that. So thank you, Darien Foundation.
Absolutely. I mean, just great work by a group of volunteers in town that are just looking to benefit the community any way they can, which is fabulous. This town is just fabulous for that type of stuff. And these people are incredible. The Dordelman family is the family that is giving $20,000 to restore the Cherry Lawn gazebo in memory of their dad, Bill Dordelman. And let me see, is there any other one I've forgotten? I hope not. For now, I think that's it.
Pam Geary, our guest today on Inside Town Hall. She is, as you know, as a faithful viewer of TV 79, the director of the Darien Parks and Recreation Department. You mentioned Highland Farm, which is not officially park land. Is that correct?
Correct. The town, when they purchased the property, did not deem it park property. However, they did deem the Parks and Recreation Department to manage it and maintain it. So we do that.
And once a piece of land is designated as a park in Darien or other towns in Connecticut, I guess, is that forever? Can you undo the park designation and decide you're going to put up a school or do something else?
The only flexible negotiation that can come out of a park property, if wanting to reuse it for something else, the town would have to exchange, if you will, the same acreage somewhere else. So if it was 16 acres, if that became 16-acre park property and they wanted to take 8 of it away, they would have to give us 8 acres somewhere else. Very interesting.
Well, speaking of available acreage, there's a chunk of land that the town, as we record this in early March of 2023, is very close to finally closing on, and that's Great Island. And I've forgotten, is that 64 acres all told or something? I remember.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. 64 acres. And a lot of things could go in there. Obviously, one of them might be some sort of parks facility. It is a beautiful piece of land and has pretty much been untouched aside from a couple of houses and the stables and the riding trails and things like that. I know it's all very premature and it's very hypothetical, but I assume the Parks Department is engaged in some sort of ideas and planning about what might go in there.
I was engaged in conversation in the very beginning of when, Monica was trying to put together her presentations, and we were all behind the scenes, asking each other, what could we do there? What was the wish list? I haven't been engaged at this stage right now. I think they're still trying to seal the deal. I'm not certain whether it will be managed the same way Highland is, and how that will work. But certainly this department would be really happy to manage that piece of beautiful waterfront property, for sure.
Well, we'll have to say, stay tuned on what's going to happen with Great Island. Let's talk about the beaches for a moment, because they are among the most popular locations for people in town to go. And not just in the summer when it's, beach weather, because there is, as you say, there's paddle at Weed Beach, and it's a nice place just to go on a sunny day, take in the nature, etc. But the two beaches we have, and you say we're very lucky to have two, are quite different in their approach. Let's talk about the philosophy between what Weed Beach is, the kind of people that it services, and Pear Tree Beach, and how that's maybe a little bit different.
Well, I've been here almost 8 years, so certainly it's learned a lot. And Weed Beach, it just has so much to offer. right? And you're right. They still have those that walk there, jog there, bike there at both beaches, right? They both have that type of traffic. But Weed Beach has traffic where people coming in with their tennis rackets and their paddle rackets, and they have their children all packed up for the playground. And they both beaches have kayak racks now that we've built, but Weed Beach continues to have more because we have more real estate than Pear Tree. Pear Tree has more parking than Weed Beach, but yet smaller, kind of smaller beach fronts on either side. It is quieter. It is a quieter, and I think after we had done the community survey, it was determined that people want to keep it that way. And so that was really what happened out of that Pear Tree improvement project that we tried to go forward with. It obviously backfired on us. We felt we did all the right steps with the park master plan and all the community meetings we were having, and the public hearings we were having. And when we really started to get going and hired an architect, and we're really excited to do something different there, those that didn't pay attention in the beginning then paid attention, said, oh, wait, hold on, this isn't what we want. And, so we really had to backpedal. And I think they're speaking loud and clear that they don't want that beach to be anywhere near what Weed Beach is.
So Weed Beach is perhaps better for families. It's noisier. There are kids running around. But some of the people, older Darien residents like myself, might prefer, Pear Tree because it's a little quieter. There are those beautiful Adirondack chairs. Mm-hmm. Every time I see those, I think of Linda Santarella.
Yes.
And the Adirondack chairs, the famous Adirondack chairs.
I wouldn't call it an older facility because still.
No, I mean, it's attracting older people.
It does. I think both do. But I do think that, we still have our summer camps that we bring down to Pear Tree, right? So they're bringing in the children there. I just think there is a lot more to offer recreationally at Weed Beach, which offers a different variety. And, it just tends to be more quiet at Pear Tree.
Right. Now, are all the Darien parks open to anybody? I mean, could somebody from Norwalk come to Cherry Lawn, or somebody from Stanford could go to McGuan Field if they wanted to?
Absolutely. Public parks are the most incredible spaces that this United States has, right? Open to anybody. However, when it comes to our beaches and spaces that have limited parking, that's where we draw the line and we charge. Our residents are charged too, but they're charged for a seasonal pass, and non-residents are charged for a daily pass. And it's solely because of how much maintenance and money we put into our beaches. And we're more than welcoming to anybody to use a public park. But during the heavy season, we do require a pass, not in any of our other beaches. So you can go to Cherry Lawn. Anybody can enjoy it. And sometimes there's a little bit of conflict there with our residents because they want to play their pickleball and there's non-residents on the court. And so, now what we're doing with that particular program, because it's grown so quickly, is that we're looking at a reservation system, not 24 hours, 7 days a week, but when you are, no matter what time of year it is, and you're bundling yourself up or you're getting your equipment, you're getting in your car and you drive down to Cherry Lawn, you want to play, and all the courts are taken. So it's going to be our best effort to accommodate the residents by giving a reservation system so that they can, like they do at Paddle. Paddle has a reservation system. So you can go in and block off some time. You pay for it, but you secure and you know for sure that you're going to have that time to play.
Pickleball. I mean, pickleball. I'm going to drop right in here a little video that was made by, I think, a student last year, kind of explaining what pickleball is. So here,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen pickleball, here's a little primer on pickleball.
Hi, everybody. I'm Damian Andrew, and welcome to this DAF Media Special. Pickleball is booming all over the country. Courts are popping up everywhere, including Darien, thanks to a campaign involving a handful of residents, Parks and Rec, local government, and the Darien Athletic Foundation. The town now has 4 pickleball courts at Cherry Lawn Park to call their own.
Pickleball is easy to play for most people, and it's fun, and it's very social. So people take to it, and players from different levels can easily play with each other and have a good time.
About 6 years ago, I went to the Jersey Shore. Friends of ours were playing pickleball, and I thought, what a great game this was. So I called up the Park and Rec director, Pam Geary, here in town, and asked about if we could get him in our courts.
I was aware of pickleball, being in the parks and recreation industry, but here in Darien we didn't have pickleball courts.
So what we did was, at the tennis court at Cherry Lawn, we painted the tennis court, the top tennis court, with just lines.
Come 2020, the need to play pickleball, people wanting to get outside in our parks was crazy, as you know. And so we took down the nets on that single tennis court at Cherry Lawn, and we put up 2 portable pickleball nets so that 2 courts could be played on.
It got so popular that the courts were booked all the time. So more and more people were playing. There was only 2 courts available with the painted tennis lines. We were competing with the tennis players, so a bunch of us got together and said, listen, we need to make 6 or 4 permanent pickleball courts.
So he suggested that he would be willing to fundraise in the community to raise the funds to build the court. And he asked the commission. The commission thought that that was a very wonderful suggestion and approved that. It was $45,000. And this was a bit more than they had expected, but the team that he was working with, which was the Valley and Patty Bumgartner, himself, Steve, our pickleball instructor, and they spread the news, and within 3 months they had the funding. And at that point we started working with the vendor, and he got started.
We were approached by 2 town residents, Patty Baumgartner and Valley Baker. So when they approached us, they had pretty much started their fundraising, which was really amazing. Their efforts were tremendous, and they just needed a little help to get them over the finish line. So naturally, they approached us, and for us, it was just a no-brainer. We love doing things with the town.
They're a great improvement to our park, and I can only thank all those that were involved to raise the fund and how generous their time was and their ability to save the taxpayers some money and put together something that these pickleball players have been wanting for a long time.
This DAF Media Special was produced by high school senior interns Mackenzie O'Shea, Sarah Bogdan, Ted Brennan, and Trey Cahill. That'll do it. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your summer.
So that's pickleball, and I can see what the attraction is. It's how many pickleball courts does Darien offer through the parks?
We've converted 1 tennis court to 4 pickleball courts. So we had 1 designated tennis court that was there for many, many years. And we had a group of volunteers and residents of the town come to the commission and ask that 1 tennis court be converted, and that they would go out and they would raise the funding for that project. And the commission agreed, and they went off on their own and they raised the $45,000 that it took to convert them. So we now have 4, but we did just finish the construction of the new tennis courts, and we will be lining those courts for pickleball as well. We have not determined how many of those courts we will permanently line for pickleball. I think there are questions in the community whether or not that would be a lot of conflict for tennis players with, permanently lining the tennis courts with pickleball, all 6 of them. So it's yet to be determined how we will go about that.
But the dedicated pickleball courts are at Cherry Lawn.
And they're 4.
Right.
Mhm.
Want to go back to the beaches because we started talking about access to the beaches, and you pointed out that in the season, I think, which runs from Memorial Day to Labor Day,
Yeah.
there's a guard at both of the
Yes.
beaches, and you have to have a beach sticker.
Correct.
And if you're a Darien resident, you pay X. If you're from out of town and you want to use one of our Darien beaches, can you just show up and pay money at the guard station and drive in and for the day?
Yes. No cash, but we will take a credit card, and you can come in for $53 per day. Yes.
Now, if $53 seems a little expensive, but if I wanted to use one of the Darien beaches, I could walk in, right? For free?
Yes.
And do we see that? I mean, I've heard that there are people who will park at Hindley School and walk down, or they'll order an Uber and the Uber will drop them off in front of the beach. That's perfectly allowable, right?
Yes, it is. And there was at one point I had some data. Our security guards would take some data for me while they're there on the weekends and during the week. And it doesn't happen a lot. I think there are residents around that, each beach that absolutely, why buy a beach sticker when you can walk there, right? They're in the perfect place to do that. There's not a lot of places to park around Pear Tree and walk in. But could you ride your bike if you were in Norwalk or I guess you could ride your bike. And that would be fine. Nobody's going to question you. It is a public space. It's just that parking is limited.
And how much does a beach permit cost for a resident of Darien?
$53 for the year.
And is that going up?
It is not going up this year. Every year, our Parks and Recreation Commission votes on the fees. And this year, we did not vote to raise that fee. It was raised $5, I want to say maybe 2019, maybe 2018 or 19, it was raised to $53.
And if our viewers don't already know it, Darien residents of a certain age actually get a free beach sticker. Is that correct?
They do. Yes, that's the perk for becoming elderly, senior citizen.
Not elderly, just older.
Just older.
Pam Geary is our guest on Inside Town Hall. She is the director of the Darien Parks and Recreation Department. You mentioned that there is a donation being made to renovate the gazebo at Cherry Lawn, and others like Federal have donated some money for playgrounds and things like that. There's also a commemorative commemorative bench program. Tell us about that.
It gives people an opportunity to honor someone, or like, for instance, a resident here in town honored Jamie Stevenson for all her work with Highland and donated her a bench with her name on it. And so it's not necessarily in honor of someone deceased, but it could be for a variety of reasons. And also at the same time, you're giving back to the town and either replenishing or replacing something old, or adding just a beautiful feature to a park or a town property.
And how much do these benches cost?
They cost $2,500 for a bench, but it's for 10 years and we have to maintain it. And you get your naming rights to it. And the athletic field benches were a little bit less. Those were, if you want to just have a bench around one of the ball fields, is $2,000 for the 10 years. And then you'd have to re-up it after 10 years if you wanted to keep it there for another 10. Many towns do have the program, but they don't give it away. It
Right.
Basically, right, they basically has to have it. And I've also heard from some residents, they wonder why it's so inexpensive, interestingly enough.
That's Darien for you. These are nice benches too. These are not just those concrete with wood slats. I mean, these are Are they
They're
redwood or teak?
Teak. Yeah, and the plaques
Darien
are
teak.
gorgeous. The plaques are brass, beautiful, heavy brass on the teak benches. They're beautiful, and it's a nice honor.
Do you get to choose where the bench is going to go?
You can give us 3 locations, but ultimately it is the town's decision. So I will work with the park supervisor, Sandy Rich, to get his approval on one of these locations. And we really try to work with the people on their number one, but it's important that our park crew can get around the bench. They have to weed whack around it. They have to mow around it, so it's important that they're part of the process.
How accessible are Darien parks for people who have mobility issues?
Access is always a tough one. We do very well in some areas, and then in some areas we need some change. So let's talk about playgrounds. So playgrounds are filled with manufactured mulch, wood chips. Some companies will tell you that they're ADA, but it's very hard for a wheelchair to move in wood chips. So, looking ahead, we have ARPA funds, and so we're really moving in the direction of wanting to put down, poured rubber, because it's completely ADA accessible for anyone in a wheelchair, anyone having difficult mobility issues. So I'm a huge proponent of wanting to move forward, regardless of the cost. It is very costly, but I'm a firm believer that our parks should be open to everybody, and that we should do our best to give access to those that, at Weed Beach, we did a great job with the bathhouse. It's, you could roll up in a wheelchair and you can enjoy the beach from the bathhouse. That doesn't really have the opportunity at Pear Tree Beach. Pear Tree Beach, best you can do is drive up and look at the water there. There's not really great access to, say, the gazebo, right? You got to walk through sand and you got to go upstairs. So, you can't even really get to the picnic area because sand is just very difficult for some people to, manipulate.
Speaking of access, I think you mentioned, or maybe I heard this at a Parks and Rec commission meeting. Some people like to drive to the beach and they just sit in their car and, they enjoy the view and they smoke. Now, I enjoy a cigar, but I am very sensitive to the fact that other people do not enjoy the smell of my cigar. So I won't smoke at the beach. Is smoking allowed? Is it forbidden? What's the rule?
Our Parks and Recreation Commission had passed a policy of no smoking at any of our parks. So we had all signs made, they're all posted. I have not had any complaints. I get more complaints about idling cars than I do about people smoking. So, either it's just that smoking has declined, or people are complaining, or people are following the rules.
And what's the problem with idling cars? I got to stay warm. It's winter.
It's that might be, we don't get any complaints about the winter because people aren't necessarily hanging at the beach outside, but during the season, the high season, people don't want to smell the fumes. And so that's another reason our park monitor was very effective, was that that was on their radar too, to make sure if there was any idling cars, they would go over and ask them to please turn off the motor.
So in the beautiful summer weather, I want to go to the beach and I want to bring my blanket and I want to bring my boombox and I want to crank up my tunes. Okay?
We have no policy on that. Although we have just brought that to the commission's attention because it has been brought up in discussion with the commission in regards to pickleball noise, radio noise with the basketball courts, with the young kids blaring their music, and some of the language in the music has been disturbing to those gardening. And see, the people don't realize what we have to deal with here. And so we are going to be discussing perhaps some sort of policy on noise related things.
Okay, I'm bringing my blanket. Maybe I'll put my headphones on for my tunes, but I got my cooler and I got my favorite beverages in there. Are adult beverages allowed at Darien beaches and in parks?
No glass allowed. No glass on the beaches. Very dangerous. So our park monitor was very effective with that as well, because again, how do you manage that if it's just a rule, but yet nobody's enforcing it? We do have signs posted, but there is no reason that you couldn't bring a cooler to any of the parks and enjoy a beverage, an adult beverage or any beverage. But we do not encourage glass. And I really haven't had a problem with that. I have heard of glass wine bottles out there. However, I haven't had any issues of broken glass that I've heard of since I've been here.
There are recycling bins at the beaches. I've heard and I've seen from my own experience, sometimes they're just overflowing. People are throwing away their trash, and the recycling bins are filled. Well, first of all, people should recycle if they take something to the beach. But what do you do if they find that the recycling bins are all full and I don't have a place to put my plastic wine bottle?
We do have the recyclable cans there, but once people throw food in it, it's done. So community event wise, we are looking into getting the to be a little bit more mindful of sustainable trash, like for instance, trash, food waste, recycling, and have those bins, and then have people at the bins. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I think we need to continue to educate, because people can be lazy and just throw everything in one can instead of, teaching their children as they walk up, here's a place where you put your part of your hamburger that you didn't want. Here's the place that you put your soda bottle. Here's the place that you put your trash.
Sounds like a great job for a Boy Scout.
Yes, it does.
Standing next to them and just pointing out the difference in all three of those. But I'm not a Boy Scout, so I'm not volunteering. We haven't talked about our four-legged friends, dogs. Dogs on leash, off leash. Are they allowed in all the parks? Are they allowed at the beaches? What's the deal on dogs?
Well, I made sure that I was going to be very prepared for this question. So I made sure I jotted this down because it is confusing. At Cherry Lawn Park, well, I'll say this is the easier way to do it. Cherry Lawn Park, Weed Beach, Tilly Pond, and Stony Brook Park allow hours for off-leash with your dog. Those four only. But within those parks, there's rules. So we'll start with Cherry Lawn Park. Dogs are permitted off-leash September 1st through May 31st. So fall and winter, dawn to 10:30 a.m. Monday through Fridays, but dawn to 8:30 on Saturday and Sundays. That's during the winter. But June 1st through August 31st, the reasoning being school's now out for summer. You can only be there dawn to 8:30 in the morning, no more till 10:30, because the playgrounds will be busy and there'll be more children about. So that was, from what I understand, their reasoning. But at Cherry Lawn, you also have a designated area between the Darien Nature Center and Brookside Road, a beautiful parcel of green space designated as all year round off leash at any time.
And are there signs up to, I was confused even as you read it to me. Are there signs there that tell people where they should go?
There are.
Okay.
I had those made in 2015. And they designate all those hours. but people don't tend to really love the off leash all year round area because it's not fenced. So unless your dog is either leashed or it's obedient, people are very fearful of Brookside Road and their dog running after a squirrel or running in the street. So that is an issue there. Tilly Pond Park, dogs are permitted off leash Monday through Friday, dawn to 10:30 and dawn to 8:30 on Saturday, Sunday. Same rules, but that's all year round there. Stony Brook Park, this one's easy. Dogs are permitted off leash any time of the year. Easy. Weed Beach, new ruling over the last 4 years. November 1st through March 31st, winter months only, in the designated area only, to the far left of the beach at Weed Beach, near the sailing area. And then I just wrote down no dogs off leash, Baker, McGuan, Diller, Woodland, Sellex, Town Hall Fields, Highland Farm, Pear Tree, and Weed Beach, April 1st to October 31st. No dogs off leash.
And what should somebody do if they see somebody violating these rules? Do they call the police? Do they call your office? What do they do?
Well, I want to add one more thing to that. Pear Tree Beach, no dogs. No dogs.
Ever?
Only if they're permitted in the parking lot, leashed, going to the boat club, or parking there to take their dog for a walk around the loop. So, yes, there have been calls to the office. If there were dogs off leash, I do have an issue more so at Woodland Park and sometimes at Sellex Woods. People tend to love to let their dogs roam and run. And I understand the mentality, but if you're a person that's out there taking a walk with your dog that's leashed, or even out there taking a walk by yourself alone, it is super intimidating for a dog to come running at you. And we have had, just recently, I've had an email of someone brutally scared, approached by 5 dogs off leash. And so, I reached out to Chip, our animal control officer, and he's going to be stopping in the park to, check it out. Again, our park monitor, that position was very helpful. That park monitor would go to Sellex Woods, take a walk through the trails, go to Woodland Park, and remind people. It was much more effective than a sign.
But they're not writing tickets per se.
They are supposed to, but there is a fine. I believe, don't mark my words, I believe it's $75. And again, please don't mark me on that one, but I believe that is the truth. And I do know they're supposed to ticket. Our commission is very serious about this because of the complaints we've been getting. And we don't want somebody to get hurt. We all think our dogs are the best and they're the friendliest and they're the kindest, but there are instances where some dogs will not mix with somebody for whatever reason. And we need to keep people safe.
And there's wildlife in those 2 parks, Woodland and Sellex Woods as well, too.
Yes,
It
of
might
course.
get them all excited and running around in areas
And
like that.
I'm a true dog lover. I love my dog, like everybody else loves their dog, but I don't ever allow her off leash.
Before we let you go, you mentioned ARPA funds. What
Yes.
are ARPA funds? How much are you getting and what are you going to use that money for?
Every town in the country was given ARPA funding, American Relief Funds. And every town had to decide how they were going to fund and utilize this money. And luckily, our town formed a committee to discuss how they would use the funds. And then they reached out to each department head and asked what their wish list would be. If they could have money, where would you spend it? So I, flooded out quite a few ideas. And the ones that were accepted were $825,000 to replace 3 playgrounds in town. We formed a playground working group. We meet every single month. and we decided to plan for McGuan Playground first. And that is already in on order. And hopefully, if everything goes as planned, it will be installed in June, hopefully the latest July. So that's super exciting. And then the committee is now meeting again, and the next playground we are going to replace is Cherry Lawn. So we will be replacing the toddler area and the 5 to 12-year-old area. And then lastly, we will be replacing Baker Playground. So that's super exciting. That may not have happened for quite a few years. So we have begun that process. And we also asked for money to replace some old picnic tables that have been around forever. So we got $10,000 to do that. We replaced 8 so far. And then we have water fountains. So $20,000 to do water fountains. We are we're scheduling those now, and then we'll have them all replaced by the end of the fall season, and hopefully by summer. And lastly, $155,000 in ARPA funds to add another paddle tennis court at Wheat Beach. And we are currently working with a vendor as we speak.
Wow.
It's
Well,
a lot.
on that optimistic note, new things coming. And by the way, the meetings of the the Parks and Recreation Commission Playground Working Group are also available, all archived on Darien TV 79. And there are some great visuals in there of what these new playgrounds are going to look like. If you're curious, just look it up on the website. It's all there. We got to wrap it up. I'm sure you have better things to do than just keep talking about all this stuff. So much going on in your department. Really appreciate you joining us. Pam Geary, the director of the Darien Parks and Recreation Department, thank you very much for all your hard work. Please share those congratulations with your staff as well, too. And thank you for being a guest on Inside Town Hall.
And thank you, Jim, for all you do, because I tell people left and right how transparent this town is. And with your service, there's not ever a reason that you wouldn't know what's going on in Town Hall.
Well, it's not my service. I'm just the tip of the spear in a larger group that makes all of this happen. But thank you. That's very kind of you to say that as well, too. So thank you for being a guest. And we have to thank our faithful viewers who have watched yet another edition of Inside Town Hall.